All right, ladies and gents, in today's video, I'm gonna go over float tubes. Get a lot of questions about this, and it's a long overdue video, so I'm gonna go over everything you would need, like why would you even wanna get a float tube? Are they even useful or practical? What's a good tube to buy? There's all kinds of different options out there, and I'll go over the different ones and costs and all of those things. There are different materials they're made of, like vinyl and polyurethane. I'll go over the pros and cons of those. All the accessories you might need. Once you purchase the float tube, you're not done. There's a lot of other things you got to get. Then I'll go over all of my tubes and all the pros and cons that I've learned by actually using them. So let's get to it. All right, now, why would you even be interested or want to purchase and try fishing from a float tube? Well, there's a few real good reasons. One is mobility. You can kick anywhere you want around the lake. You don't have to get there first thing in the morning to get a spot. You're out on the water and you're extremely mobile, and you can move around quite a bit to get at the fish. Another real huge thing, and when I usually use my float tube, is when it gets warmer. When it gets warmer and the water temps go up a little bit, the trout will be up close in the morning, but in the late morning and early afternoon, they head out a little bit deeper and suspend. So if you're only fishing from shore, it can be very tough to get your bait presentation to where the fish are. And that's where a float tube will come in. It's a real good tool, especially like up in the Eastern Sierra. Beginning of the season in spring, fish are always up close. It's very cold. But once you get into July, August, the fish are still there and willing to bite, but they move out to a little bit deeper sections of water where it's a little bit cooler. So you can't get them from shore unless you only fish in the morning and late afternoon, early evening. And float tubes are a way more affordable option to get you out on the water than a boat or a kayak. Boats and kayaks are great. As you know, I have my kayaks and I love them. But there are certain instances where I prefer to use the float tube. It's a little bit easier to deploy sometimes. And quite simply, if you don't have all the water vehicles that say I have, it's a very affordable and good way to get out on the water and get after those suspended trout that are out a little bit deeper. And on that note, they are a lot easier to transport than a kayak or a boat, right? Because float tubes are inflatable, so they compact down. So you can just throw it in the trunk of your car, back of your pickup, or wherever, and you could even be at the lake shore fishing. And if the bite changes, say the fish go out deeper, you can just go over to your car, whip out your float tube, inflate it, and get out on the water. And if the bite changes again, they come back in, you can put the tube away and fish from shore again. So it's a really good option to have, like an extra tool in the toolbox, like I like to say. Most important thing that I like about them is they're extremely comfortable. I always say it's like fishing in a lazy boy. You can damn near fall asleep in those things if you're not careful. But it's literally like sitting in a recliner. Real comfortable way to fish. There are drawbacks because if it gets windy, you do have to kick with your little fins and all that, and that can get tiring. So you got to monitor the weather and make sure that the winds aren't going to kick up later when you're out on the water at a lake. Or if it's too windy, you just can't go out and you'll be fishing from shore. But overall, really good option. Like I said, I have the kayaks now and all those things, but I'm not getting rid of my float tubes because they are extremely useful and I do enjoy fishing out of them. Okay, there are two main materials that your inner tubes that allow these things to float are going to be made of, and it's vinyl or polyurethane. Now, polyurethane is a much more durable material. It can handle or resist puncture a lot more than the vinyl. It can also handle a lot more extreme temperatures than the vinyl. So typically, like if most folks that use their float tubes don't use them every day and they have them in a garage, let's say. So in the heat of summer, you know, your garage gets real hot, or if you live in a colder environment during winter, it gets really cold. The polyurethane tubes tend to stand up a little bit better to that punishment. And if you use it every day, they're a lot more durable, right? The vinyl is a little less durable, but it's very good. And that's what you're gonna find most of the tubes are made of, because polyurethane, obviously it's more durable, it's more expensive. So typically a lot of the manufacturers, even some of the higher end tubes, use vinyl tubes. And I own both. I have some tubes with poly and some tubes with vinyl, and I haven't had a problem with either, to be honest with you. I have had holes in one of my older tubes. I just patched it. They're vinyl, but that was from a lot of use. So it really is up to you. I wouldn't get too hung up on it unless you're really into having the most durable bulletproof tube you can possibly have. That's fine, but I'm not. As long as the thing isn't leaking as soon as I get it out of the box first time on the water, I'm usually pretty happy. All right, now that you got the tube, now you got to buy all the accessories to make it enjoyable. So first thing you're going to need, and like I say, some of these tubes you can buy, especially on Amazon, has a lot of different manufacturers or tubes they sell. Some of them come in with kits where they come with all this stuff already in the kit, which isn't a bad thing. But if you get one of the more expensive, higher end tubes, you're just buying the tube. So you're gonna have to get all this stuff. So the first thing is a pump. Obviously these float tubes are full of air, and that's what allows them to float. So you're gonna need a decent pump. This one is a Tech Sport, real cool pump. It's a double action pump, so it puts air in as it goes up and as it goes down. And you can also switch the handles here, the tube, you can put it on the other handle and deflate if necessary. But a lot of the tubes, some of the nicer tubes have real big valves on them, so you want to deflate them, you just open the valve and all the air just shoots right out of it. So it's real simple. And then they have multiple attachments, because all these tubes and tube manufacturers use different types of valves. So you got to have an assortment of different attachments so you have the right one for your tube. The next thing is rod holders. You're probably going to need a rod holder, even if you're not bait and weight fishing out there on the tube, because when you're handling a fish, you're going to want to set your rod down so you don't have to worry about accidentally knocking it into the water and losing it, right? So it's really good to have a rod holder, and they make a bunch of different types that fit on these tubes, and most of them are very relatively inexpensive. You don't have to break the bank on your rod holders, and really any of this gear, it will get the job done. So here's the rod holder I have. Well, I actually have two of them, and they have these nylon straps, and you can see the base is curved so it can fit around the front of the tube. And you just strap it around the tube and tighten it down. And these things hold up great. They're also positional, so you can switch it if you want to put it on the opposite side, whatever you want to do. Real cool things, and they're relatively inexpensive. I'm sure you could go out there and find some that are several $100s, but you just don't need it. These are, I think, 20 bucks, as I remember, and they've worked really, really well for me. And another really important thing is your swim fins. And they sell a variety of fins. These are the ones I have. These are Outcast, I believe, force fins. And the way these things are designed, they're designed to go over a boot. So in your waders, whether you have boot on waders or stocking foot waders with boots like I tend to like, these are designed real large so you can get your whole boot in there and strap it down to it. Now, there are other fins, like some guys in float tubes have used diving fins, and they use stocking foot waders, so they just put the fin over the stocking foot because it's not designed to go over a boot, right? The problem with those is they're real great for thrust if you're going in a straight line, but lots of times when you're out in a float tube, the wind and the currents you'll turn, and you need to kick your feet slowly underneath to position yourself. And those real long diving fins aren't really practical for that. So that's why these ones are specially designed. They're short, but long enough to give you some decent thrust, but short enough, and they got this cut out of them that really helps you with the fine tuning maneuvers that you're going to have to do while you're out there. Another thing is a decent net. And again, I prefer and suggest you get a floating net. And this is a floating net I found on Amazon. There's bunches of them out there. Just type in floating fishing net. And I think this thing was 20 bucks or less. No big deal. It's collapsible and works real great on the tube. It's even telescopes a little bit, so it comes out a bit if you got to reach. Really decent net, especially for the money. I think it was 20 or less. And it also floats. It doesn't look like it does, but it does. So in case you drop it, I have a little clip on the back here that I can clip to the tube in case I drop it so it doesn't float away from me. Definitely going to need a net, especially a lot of these bigger tubes. You're up out of the water and it can be a little bit tougher to reach down, especially for a guy my size. I'm not a huge guy. I have a hard time reaching and grabbing a fish in the tube, so the net is really useful. Another thing that I use, or that you may want to use that I don't actually use very often, is an anchor. And this is a little claw anchor. I think it's a 5-pound anchor. What I do with mine is I put a little length of chain on here to help it when it falls in the water. It helps keep the end down. So these hooks dig into the sand easier, or whatever the terrain is down there. And then I went to Home Depot or Lowe's and got a little amount of rope, probably about 100 yards of rope on one of those little plastic cranks. It's probably paracord. It's not real heavy, but it's more than adequate to put on here. The downside with the anchors and the float tubes is if you hook a fish, especially a big fish, you're going to have a potential of running into this anchor line and getting tangled up, especially on those float tubes, because you spin a lot. The fish, even a 4 or 5 pound trout, is going to be able to pull you around a little bit and turn you in the tube because you're so high up on the water. It's kind of like you're a leaf on top of the water in the wind. So typically, I don't use an anchor, don't even take it with me unless, say I'm up in the Sierras. I know the wind's going to be a little bit high, and I want to fish a specific spot and want the wind at my back. So I'll throw out the anchor, get all set up, and want to fish a specific area. Then I'll use it, but that's pretty rare. So I just usually have one and I keep it in my truck. I usually don't take it out with me on the float tube, but everybody's different. Maybe you really want to use the anchor and have at it. I get nervous. I don't want to get a big fish tangled up my anchor line. Now, the most important thing when you're out there on the water with your waders on and all of those things is a PFD, a life jacket. You cannot or should not ever go out on a float tube wearing waders without a life vest. Mainly for us, we're trout fishermen. It's a cold water fish. The water's cold. You have that disadvantage. Also, you're wearing waders. You're going to be out in deeper water. It is very difficult, if not impossible. I haven't tried it. If you fell out of your tube, to get back in it. So if you didn't have a life vest or some type of flotation and you couldn't hang on to your tube till you got to the shore, you could be in real trouble. So always take some sort of life jacket with you. It really could save your life. And a lot of the manufacturers, like this is an Old Town jacket that I use on the kayak, but they have lots of extra pockets so you can store extra gear in here, and they're designed for fishing. And they have a lot of jackets that are designed for use with specific float tubes. So please don't skimp on that. It's just not worth it. Doing something fun and that's not extreme and dangerous, but it can become that way if you're not careful. So always take out a life jacket. All right, guys, here are my float tubes. And they're all very different, as you can see. Different sizes, different designs, but all have their unique pros and cons. And some are older than others, but all of them are very effective at getting out on the water and getting after them fish. All right, this first tube is my oldest tube. This is an older design pontoon type tube, as you can see. It's a Caddis Kennebec Trout Unlimited pontoon tube. They don't make this version anymore, and I believe it's probably about 20 years old. I don't remember exactly when I got it, but it's probably been around for 20 years. Back then it would retail for about $170 to $200, which is pretty spendy, especially back then for a float tube. But this was one of the premier tubes at the time, as they were getting away from the circular tubes. But this one has several drawbacks. The designs are much better nowadays. One thing is it's got 3 tubes in it. So you got your 2 main ones, and then in the back there, there's another tube back there. But the problem with these pontoon type style tubes is with the 3rd tube in the back, it puts pressure on the front, so you have to have this stabilizer bar up front, otherwise your pontoons collapse in on each other. So it's not super stable like some of the newer boats. Another thing is this seat. As you can see, you sit real low, so you are sitting in the water. And there's not much but a nylon back with some real light padding in it. So the seat's not super great either. You're really low in the water, but it is still effective at getting you out there and getting you on some fish. But with the newer boats, they're designed a lot better, and you sit a little bit higher, and it makes life a little bit easier on you. But this is a fine pontoon boat to get out on the water with and give it a shot. Another downside is it's all nylon construction on the outside, so there's no PVC on the bottom. It's all just nylon, so wear is definitely a factor with this tube. Another issue with these is the valve system they have on here. There's no quick release. When you're done for the day, you have to basically unscrew the valve and then use body weight pressure, or use your hands to get the air out of this to collapse this thing down enough to store it or transport it home. So nowadays they have much better valves that you can just open and all the air just floods out, making it a lot simpler and easier to use and put away. All right, now this boat is probably my favorite tube. This is the Outcast Fish Cat 4. And these retail for about $299, but a really, really good tube. It's got vinyl tubes on the inside, and it has 2 tubes. So some of these newer boats have one singular tube that goes all the way around. This one has 2, so you can see the valves right there. So if one starts flattening out, you still have a whole nother one to rely on. Another thing that's interesting about the Fish Cat 4, and there's something called a Fish Cat 4 Deluxe, is this boat has a foam seat. So this does not inflate or deflate. It's constantly like that, and the backrest is also foam, which can be considered a good thing if you want to save a little bit of time. You don't have to inflate or deflate your seat like you do with some other boats. But a drawback is it does not pack up as small because you got these big foam blocks in there. So it's much harder to roll this thing up. The exterior is a mix of nylon and PVC, and on the bottom they have all PVC, which is really good because it's extremely durable. And as you can see, there's a lot of drag marks and mud on there. But if you had a nylon coated boat, it would definitely wear out a lot faster. The storage on here is decent. It's not as big as most, but it's good enough for me. You'll see the next one, the Fish Cat Super Fat Cat, has much better storage. But these definitely, I can get by with that, no problem. Another real good feature are these valves right here. Is you can open up the bottom valve, and it's a nice, good size hole, and all the air just floods right out of it. So really, really nice boat. It rides real well on the water. It's easy to maneuver. And this is, like I said, this is probably my favorite boat. All right, now this boat is a really, really nice boat. This is an Outcast Super Fat Cat, and these retail for about 600 bucks. This boat is designed for larger framed folks. Like I'm 5'9", 185 pounds. I'm able to fit in the Fish Cat 4. But most guys that are much bigger, like guys over 6 foot, 200 something pounds, they're going to want to opt for a bigger boat like this one. And basically that's the only difference between this one and the Fishcat 4 is it's bigger. So it can handle more payload. And as you can see, the storage compartments are much bigger and wider. The seat is much wider. This one has an inflatable seat. So the bottom part and the backrest are inflatable. You sit very high out of the water, much like the Fishcat 4. It's got some nylon outer, but the bottom is really strong PVC, so it's really, really durable. You got your nice little tray here that you don't really have to use, only if you want to. One thing that's very interesting about this boat, it has a vinyl tube, but it only has one tube. As you can see, there's just one valve right there. And then the seat has extra valves, one for the backrest under here and one for the seat you actually sit on. One of the biggest issues I have with this, well, it's probably the only issue is when I take this out, since I'm a smaller frame guy, it's really, really quick in the morning because I'm sitting so high up on top of the water. I can really get out to the spots real quick, but the trade-off is when the wind kicks up, I have a hard time with it in the wind because I'm so high out of the water. The profile of it catches a lot of wind, so it's very tough to stay on a spot if I'm trying to fish a certain spot. But other than that, it's a really, really nice tube. All right, this last one is a really, really cool one. I just haven't used it yet. This is an Outcast Pax 900 pontoon boat. And as you can see, this is a really, really big boat. It's got oars. On the back, there's a tray back here. You can put a motor mount on there real easily and hook up a trolling motor. So this is almost like an inflatable boat. As you can see, you sit real high out of the water. It's got some footrests right here, large storage bags on each side. And also it has anchor systems in it where this rope goes right through these pulleys all the way out to the back so you can deploy and bring in your anchor real easy. And then you also have an optional front anchor mount. So you can anchor this thing up just like a boat and be pretty still. The other cool thing with the oars, you're highly maneuverable because this thing weighs next to nothing on the water. You can get around and move around very, very quickly and easily. This one obviously has two different separate pontoon bladders. It is made of polyurethane, and you can see the pontoons are covered with this PVC material, which is super, super durable. A couple of the main drawbacks of this kind of boat, it's not portable because you can see it's got a real large steel frame that goes around it. And also that makes it very heavy. This thing, once it's inflated, it weighs about 45 pounds. And the cost is about, you're looking at a little over $2,000 for one of these. And this is an old boat. A subscriber had this, I guess, in his backyard for years sitting in the sun, and it was a mess, and he gave it to me and I cleaned it up. And as you can see, the PVC covers over the bladders are just fine, even sitting in the sun, and it cleaned up real nice. I just haven't had a chance to take it out and use it. But it's another option if you want to get something like this. They are definitely workable, and you can get on a lot of fish real easily, especially if you threw a little trolling motor on there. All right, now for the most important question I always get. What kind of tube or what tube should I buy? And that really depends.
Are you serious?
It really comes down to how often are you going to use it? Are you somebody like me who fishes all the time and is going to use the tube like weekly or monthly, like every month, and put it through a lot of punishment? Then you may want to spend a little bit more on your tube. If you're just trying it out for the first time, or you only fish like say during Sierra season or during the local trout season, you can get away with a much less expensive tube. Really with the cost, it just comes down to what materials they're using in the tube that makes it more durable. All of the tubes you'll find like on Amazon, all over the place at different prices, they will fish. Because you got to take it down to like any pool toy. You can go down to the drugstore and buy a little pool float, and you'll float in the water, but that thing won't last very long, right? Same thing with the float tubes. Any of them, you could spend 70 or 100 bucks and get a decent tube that will float. The only problem is it probably won't last very long, and it won't be a season or so, depending on how much you use it, to where you got to replace the entire tube. Whereas if you spend a little bit more money, you might get something that's more of an investment, and then you can have season after season after season and get use out of it. So it really comes down to the old saying, you get what you pay for. That's basically it. I would advise you to stick with the U or V-shaped type tubes, which is most of what I have. They are easier to get in and out of. It's also very difficult. Like the worst part of float tubing to me is sitting in that thing and putting my fins on my boots and taking them off my boots at the end of the day. It's not easy to do. But with the U and the V tubes, it makes it a little bit easier. Also, those tubes have some design to them. They're designed to cut through the water a little bit better, to make you a little bit faster and make the kicking a little bit easier. You will see the older style tubes that are round like a big donut. You can still buy those. I don't recommend those only because they're only designed to have you float. And they don't have any, I don't know if it's called aqua dynamics or any design to them to help cut through the water, because they don't. They won't cut through the water as well as the U or the V-shaped tubes. And the other thing is they're very hard to get into. You have to almost put on your fins before you get into the thing, or get into the thing and you probably have to lean way far back. I don't know how you would do it. But there's a reason why you don't see many of the round tubes like you used to. I'm sure there's some guys that are real into them. But to me, I prefer definitely the U or the V-shaped, and that's what's most common out there anyway. So with that, if you want any of the fine products I use on this channel, like the Golden State Fishing custom baits, the Katana rods, the Waterland sunglasses, or any of the waders or boots that I use, there's a QR code right up here. If you click on that, it'll take you to a link tree, which has hyperlinks to all these sites, including the discount codes. And some of the hyperlinks, if you use them from this link tree, have the discount already in it if you decide to make a purchase. And you can get discounts of up to 15% off. So go check those things out. I use them daily on the channel when I'm out on the water. Really, really nice products, or I wouldn't use them or put them up here. If you have any further questions or comments, please leave them here. I do my very best to get back to you in a timely manner and answer them. You can also message me on my Instagram at Seaspanker Outdoors. And I post on there typically more up-to-date stuff. I'll post closer when I'm fishing, getting these YouTube videos out. Sometimes it's a week or two from when I was at whatever lake. But on the Instagram, it's a lot more timely. And coming up next, I think when this video comes out, I will be back up at the Mid. So hopefully that goes well. My last trip wasn't great, but it's still fun. And then once I'm back from the Mid, be right back at the local scene. I have been out fishing local, just haven't been doing that great. Did pretty good at Hesperia, so that video is coming out pretty soon. But usually January till the end of season is my favorite time to fish local. So hopefully the bite picks up, and we'll get some more videos out there and get you all on some more fish. So hope to see you out there, and tight lines.